What if I told you that the most dangerous manipulators don't look like villains but like your best friend? In this chapter, we'll uncover the subtle psychological traps they use and how you can use them too, ethically or otherwise. Ready to unlock the mind games no one talks about? Chapter 3. The Essence of Dark Psychology. Psychology has sought to uplift the human spirit in recent years with several common psychological concepts such as positive psychology, or the various books published to tell the masses how to act, from talking about parachutes, 10 steps to something the mired of how-to titles, and much more to lead a fulfilled, happy life. Any of them is nothing but misplaced pop psychology or a fad of the moment. Can existence be as simple as reading the right book and following certain universal principles? And for you and me, everything will be okay? We will discuss the dark side of the human mind, that part that sees disengagement, devastation, vile actions as part of the regular human psyche that occurs from time to time in us, all that part that finds passion, joy, and enjoyment in the dysfunctional part of our life. This paper is different. How can society, with its dark side, be reconciled? To refer to those in society who contradict the social norm, I use the word crazy. Dark psychology is both the study of criminal deviant behavior and a psychological structure within all human beings to decode the capacity for evil. Dark psychology is the study of the human condition as it relates to the psychological essence of individuals driven by criminal and/or deviant drives that lack intent and general assumptions of instinctual drives and the theory of social sciences to manipulate other individuals. In order to victimize other individuals and living beings, all of mankind has this ability. However, this urge is restrained or sublimated by many. Some act upon these impulses. Dark psychology attempts to explain certain emotions, feelings, beliefs, and mechanisms of subjective processing that contribute to a predatory activity that is antithetical to human behavior's contemporary understandings. Dark psychology presumes that 99% of the time, criminal, deviant, and violent actions are deliberate and have some logical, goal-oriented motivation. It is the remaining 1% of the pieces of Adlerian theory and the teleological method, dark psychology. Inside the human mind, dark psychology postulates that there is an area that causes certain individuals to perform atrocious actions without intent. In this philosophy, the dark singularity has been coined. Next, let's explore how the dark side of psychological thinking and conduct can be defined. We need a metric to know what is normal and what is considered abnormal activity. Social norms are our first measure. This means what is considered a standard daily activity in every society, given a collection of circumstances that confront our understanding. For example, striking another person violently in Western culture is considered a criminal act and one that is repugnant to a peaceful society. However, when the individual is granted social permits, such as a soldier in the act of war, a policeman in the act of arrest of a violent suspect, a citizen protecting his family from another person's serious threat, we condone abuse. It is possible to misunderstand these double standards in many ways. The soldier who commits war crimes such as genocide, the police officer who uses abuse to threaten a witness while questioning them, or the individual who abuses the rights of another person in order to in any way advance their own status. Is the second measure moral? How do we determine what is right and wrong as a society? Who has the authority to decide these rights? Do laws follow moral conviction, or do they become the defense of the weak against the strong or the rich against the poor? Most communities accept that it is against a moral code to murder another human being. It is inherently unethical to kill and should be punishable by an act of equal severity, by a culture that accepts the moral legal stance imposed by its politicians on the masses. For most cultures, this was a moral code of conduct from Buddhism to the Muslim Quran, such as the 10 Commandments of the Christian faith and other such codes. In the legal language and rules are seen as the basis of every civilized nation of individuals. Trust in divine reward and punishment is expressed. Having embraced these rules, why then do people easily deviate from these morals, laws, and religious rules that allow us all to live in a safe community governed by agreed behavioral standards that protect the person from threat, harm, and abuse. The third field of conduct is that it is not set out in law or religious concepts, but in certain regular sets of conduct that English might refer to as manners or polite. The conduct or way of behaving that conforms to actions recognized as that of a superior member of a society who knows how to conduct themselves in the company of others to a set of norms that are seen as the mark of an advanced civilization. Sometimes this can be seen in the etiquette of table manners, or a man opening a door for a woman. The above example is to provide an insight into conduct that violates our three social norms: moral law, hurting a defenseless animal, socially acceptable behavior, the taboo on senseless behavior perceived as wrongdoing. Socially acceptable behavior. While everyone might lose their temper and kick their dog, most will feel pangs of guilt and remorse. Here, however, we meet individuals who feel no shame, no regret, and see themselves as excluded from laws that they disagree with. Was fox hunting a cruel sport mostly carried out by smart, professional, wealthy men and women in England? Yet, for nothing more than a good time, the same people demanded the right to hunt and destroy a defenseless animal when they watched their hounds rip apart and devour a fox. It took several years of lobbying to have this enacted into law, but the majority of English citizens voted on several occasions to ban this sport. Fox hunting is now an illegal practice, but these same individuals continue to breach the law and hunt under local bylaws that have failed to comply with national legislation. These people know what they are doing is illegal, immoral, and against social norms, as defined by majority opinion. Yet they claim to be superior members of society, and therefore above the common masses' regular moral concerns. The exciting thing in England is that these individuals are members of Parliament, police, judges, and those who regulate facets of English cultures, such as property owners, land given often by royal consent in the past, by robbing the rightful land of the poor. In other words, the same people who should set an example for society are the very people who flaunt the rules and conduct that are socially acceptable. In another case, we've got to look at a suspect. As they have come from flawed backgrounds, impoverished homes, and inadequate parental education, offenders are also seen as the rejects of society. Yet in culture, a corporate crime, such as pension fund embezzlement, securities, and shares in insider trading, and theft of assets and resources by CEOs and government officials, is also the greatest damage done to the public. Sometimes this so-called white-collar crime is undetected and the most difficult to bring to justice, as their offenses trigger localized distress and make the media scream for police action and civil authority action. Everyday offenders are more visual to the public. Therefore, most laws that are easy to understand are about visual crime. Visual crime punishment is also straightforward and dealt with in our courts and media every day. The so-called victimless crime of white-collar criminals who see no direct victim, or the murderer who kills and maims those who oppose his will to steal what he wants from society, and the distress they leave behind during an armed robbery. How do we distinguish between the two types of criminal? So what does psychology have to say about deviants who do not see their behavior as an issue for themselves and feel that others do not take control of their lives as weak and therefore deserve to be victims of those who are smarter, stronger, or more powerful? The media often cries out about the passive masses that accept the status quo, and the local person who took the law into their own hands might be condemned in the same document to avenge some wrongdoing against them or their families. The first area that the reasons behind this dark behavior of others are explained by psychology is developmental, that upbringing is on the path of this behavior, that the dog kicker was not correctly loved or cared for, that they were subject to cruelty, sexual abuse, or lack of social education during their formative years, that the same transgressors were victims of bullying at school and thus needed to carry out their own anger on others in society that is weaker than themselves. The question we have to ask here is why some victims, in fact, most, continue to be law A. If this chapter made you question what's real and what's influence, good. That means it's working. But we're just getting started. Don't stop now. Follow this audiobook and jump into Chapter 4, where we expose the tactics used by cult leaders, corporate predators, and yes, even romantic manipulators. Hit next and take control before someone else does.